Okay. All right. Shabbat Shalom. I guess it's almost Shabbat, huh? It's close enough. About 15 or so more minutes. We want to today. I don't try not to spend too much time, but we'll see where it goes. For now, we will. I wanted to, since this week we started with the beginning of the 6th month, the month that is commonly called Elul. I wanted to look at that a little bit, as kind of traditionally, and during this month we deal with 40 days of repentance, 40 days of teshuvah, turning back to the Father. 40 days, a month, of course, isn't 40 days, but from the beginning of the month of Elul, 40 days, at the end of 40 days, we end up at Yom Kippur. So, dealing with these next 40 days, as we go through, something that can be at the forefront of your mind is kind of doing a kind of a self inventory and introspective kind of dealings, so that when it comes to that time of Yom Kippur, to really, get into the significance of the time of the day, that you have really looked at yourself, looked at your situation, looked at where you are from a spiritual perspective, and are really ready to enter into the time. So what we want to do is look at a few things. Think about the month of Elul, the month of Elul. It is the 6th month. It is a time that we can look at as a time of reflection, a time of preparation. Just like the 6th day of the week is the preparation day for the Shabbat. The 6th month of the year and can also be looked at as this preparation time for the 7th month of the year, which of course brings with it Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, Sukkot, of course, Tabernacles, and the last great day. So, when we look at Elul, which really is a month name that came about when Israel came out of Babylon, but it's kind of what we traditionally look at and call the 6th month. But it's interesting when we look at the Elul in the Hebrew, which actually looks like this in the Hebrew, Elul. Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed. In the ancient, of course, we have the ox's head, the shepherd's goat or shepherd's staff, and the tent peg, and another lamed, which of course is the shepherd's staff. So the aleph gives us the idea of strength, or being strong, and a leader, or leading. The lamed, or the shepherd's staff, has gives us the idea of leading, as in leading along as you would do with with the shepherd's staff, or teaching, instructing, guiding, disciplining, and also the vav is giving you the idea of to add to or to secure. So when we look at this month, of Elul, it kind of gives us this idea of leading, guiding, teaching, disciplining, goading, adding to all of those things, which we can, put into that, the idea of repentance, right? Because if, I'm going astray and the shepherd, nudges me with his rod, right? It causes me to return, right? It caused me to teshuvah.
If you go too far out and he hits you with that rod.
Right, he just scoops me back in with that rod. That's repenting. That's turning away from where I was going and turning back to where Yahweh is leading, our shepherd. So, from now, for a couple of days, we're a couple of days into it now, into the month, but all the way up until the Day of Atonement, we really should be in kind of reflective kind of a mode, and you have quite a while to really look and really seek Yahweh's face and really press in order to get you to the place to be able to really take full advantage of the 7th month of the year that's coming upon us. It'll be here. It'll be here before you know it, right? So when we think about this idea of Elul and repentance, and what ways we might go about, even looking into ourselves, we think about the fact that Yahweh really is, He is the Father of light. An example of Yahweh and His goodness is shown to us by, by light. When we look at things like Psalms 119, 105, when it says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path," right? The word of Yahweh lightens up the dark path. It's a lamp that we use to take as we go to lighten those dark paths, to change those ways that are dark into light. His word is that. So when we look at His word, it helps us, it causes us to actually see things the way that He would have for us to see. Proverbs 6:23 says, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life, right? So that's really giving us the same kind of concept in terms of when we look at the words that Yahweh has provided for us, his Torah, his law, his commands, they guide us. They guide us along a right path. They you know, when you think about having light in the first place in terms of walking, when you have light, you're able to see things around you, right? You're able to see things, you know, trouble ahead. You're able to see the terrain of the road ahead of you. And this is something that the word of Yahweh is for us. One I got for the children, Proverbs 20:20 says, "Whoso curses his father or his mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness." Right? So it talks about the person who has done this thing that's obviously contrary to the commandments of Yahweh, contrary to the light of Yahweh, where in doing so, right, he's essentially done put out his own light by doing that. But the writer here says his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. Now, when we look at the idea of Yahweh and his light, and thinking about the fact that his light really exemplifies, you know, righteousness, you know, Yahweh being of righteous character, right? When we think about the light of Yahweh, and we think about the glory of Yahweh, you know, righteousness is included in that. You know, when we think about who Yahweh is, who he is, righteousness. But when we think about righteousness, it's not like a tangible thing. But when we think about Yahweh and who he is, being that he is righteousness, but he's light, it's almost as if we're, you know, light, his righteousness, his character, his glory, kind of is this kind of a tangible thing. Right? When you talk about the glory of Yahweh, his kavod, it's light, it's splendor, but again, it's weighty. So again, we're thinking about this thing that we normally only think of in terms of, you know, being kind of a visual kind of a thing, intangible kind of a thing, but in the very definition of it, you know, you have this idea of this weight. So it's the same kind of a thing. We think about the righteousness of Yahweh, or the character of Yahweh, where it's more than just, it's not just say an idea.
It's not your mind.
Right. It's not just something that you think about. It's tangible. It's so.
I mean, everything that Yahweh has to do with is tangible in a way. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just holy because you think you're holy. You're holy because of your actions and what you do.
Right. Right.
And he doesn't want, when he talks about you hearing him, it's not just hearing him in your mind, it's actually obeying.
Right. Right. When we deal with the things that talk to us about something that we might think about it in terms of senses, like hearing, it's kind of all those things are kind of dual purpose. Like when he talks about Shemaing, as you said, it's like it's hearing, yes, but there's obedience, there's action involved. We think about to see or ra'ah. Yes, there's seeing involved, but there's also that experiencing it that's involved also. So it's the same thing. We think about the glory of Yahweh that's kind of represented to us with this idea of light, but just like everything else, there's actions involved in it. So when we think about again this time that we've kind of come into in terms of the 6th month of the Hebrew calendar, the month Elul. There is a passage in the book of Exodus that is associated with this time, and also when we think about the things that are within this particular passage we're going to look at, when we think about these different attributes that are listed inside of these couple of verses, if we just look at these different attributes, which really at the end of the day can be lumped into one kind of category, but just kind of breaking them out into pieces and kind of meditating on these different attributes, if we allow ourselves to be able to do this for an extended period of time, I think that it really can aid in this kind of retrospective time when we're able to look at the character of Yahweh. We're able to look at the character of Yahweh and see what that looks like and measure that against our lives and see how these things are actually working in our lives. It can really help us to be able to push us forward, moving us forward to continue to grow in the likeness of the character of Yahweh, who is Yeshua. So we have this idea, this kind of traditional idea that is the 13 attributes of mercy. Again, we're talking about the 40 days of repentance. Now, inside of the 40 days of repentance, we can actually reflect among other things, these 13 attributes of mercy to be able to kind of move us in the direction of teshuvah, as we better understand the character of Yahweh. First of all, let's just look and see what we're going to talk about, the attributes of mercy. Before we look at the verse, I wanted to just look at what we would even call mercy. Here, let me do this. Let me take this. In terms of I can put this right up on here. Computers are moving a little slow today. Maybe because we got all these
devices,
all these things going on. Let me just put this up here real quick. Okay, so oh wait, it's not letting me put this up there. Okay, I guess I can't. I'm not that advanced. I can't put that up there. But so what we're looking at is 1828, 1828 Webster's dictionary. Mercy. Okay, good. There you go. Okay, mercy. That was a long time to do that, wasn't it? That benevolence, mildness, or tenderness of heart, which disposes a person to overlook injuries. Now, benevolence, mildness, tenderness, a type of character, something that's going on internally, tenderness of heart, which disposes a person to overlook injuries. So when we think about that, what mercy is, right? It's this thing that's happening. It doesn't have anything to do with the injurer, but more so to do with the injury, right? He's able to, within his own self, deal with things inside of himself and then deal with the injurer in a different way, right? Or to treat an offender better than he deserves. The disposition that tempers justice and induces an injured person to forgive trespasses and injuries and to forbear punishment. We think about all these things. We really think about things that are really connected with Yahweh, how he deals with us, right? Or inflict less than law or justice will warrant. In this sense, there is perhaps no word in our language precisely synonymous with mercy. That which comes nearest is grace. So when we think about this idea, when we think about what mercy is, thinking about this idea of me within myself feeling a way and not treating you based on what you did to me, but me treating you based on something that's inside of me, right? I'm treating you not according to what you deserve, but I'm treating you with how I feel like treating you. When we think about love, right? Love is something, right? Along those lines. When we think about love, it's not something that I'm doing for you or to you as a result of something that you've done to me. It's something that originates inside of me, that I now am going to deal with you a certain way, not because of anything that you've done, but because that's how I want to deal with you. So when we think about this idea of mercy, right, and then we think about all these other kind of attributes that are connected with Yahweh, it's almost as if we can use this idea of mercy as kind of almost being this kind of common denominator. in the character of Yahweh. Okay, what
I think of that as compassion.
Compassion, that's very good. So compassion can also be put into the same category in terms of this thing that we're looking at in terms of these 13 attributes
Or
of mercy. What do you got? A thesaurus over
I
here?
know, yeah. I think he has a thesaurus.
That's hilarious.
But he knows it compassion. It's for VeggieTales.
No, it's not from VeggieTales.
So let's look at the verse. Let's look at the verse where we actually find these attributes of mercy. Exodus 34. Exodus 34 verses 6 and 7. Exodus, Shemot,
What?
chapter 34 verses 6 and 7. Do you have that? Exodus 34 verses 6 and 7.
I have it.
All right, we'll read it aloud then.
And Yahweh passed by before him and proclaimed, Yahweh, Yahweh, Elohim, merciful, the gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children, and unto the third and unto the fourth generation.
Okay, very good. So within these verses, we see this concept of these 13 attributes of mercy. The tradition. So what we have here from verse 6. First of all, the context. Of course, we're dealing with the idea. We're dealing with the time when Moses has received the commandments from Yahweh. He's in the presence of Yahweh. He's in the presence of Yahweh. Yahweh tells him about the golden calf situation. Moses goes down, of course, and sees all of this, does what he does with Aaron and all of that. And as a result, the killing of the 3,000 people. And as a result of it, Yahweh said he's going to send an angel to send the people into the land, to lead the people. He's going to send a messenger. And Yahweh wants Moses wants for Yahweh to actually lead the people in. So he goes into this time of going before Yahweh, advocating for the people, asking for the forgiveness of what has happened. And that's when he goes through the thing of asking to see the glory of Yahweh and the kavod. And when he does that, Yahweh says that, of course, that he can't see the unadulterated glory of Yahweh, but what he will do is shield Moses from the unadulterated glory. He'll shield him and allow for his glory to pass by. So what we see here actually is this going on. It's described in 34. So it's described in the end of 33 as you know, Moses being put in the cleft of the rock, and the hand of Yahweh putting his hand over Moses, as you know, shielding him as the glory goes by. When we see what happens in chapter 34, the next chapter, we see that where Yahweh comes down, Yahweh came down, verse 5, in the cloud and stood with him there. Yahweh came down and stood with Moses and proclaimed the name of Yahweh. So it's an interesting thing that's going on, because in the previous chapter it talked about Yahweh putting Moses in the cleft of the rock and covering him with his hand. But when the thing happens, he comes beside him and proclaims his name, which causes me to think that he's being covered. He's being covered by the name, or he's being covered by the proclamation of the name, which is the word. We know, which is Yeshua. We think about the word as we think, talked about it just a little earlier, the word being really the character of Yahweh. Written down, right? It's a light. It not only does it represent the character of Yahweh, but it it is the character of Yahweh, right? So we see this kind of pictured for us here with Yahweh passing by, proclaiming this name, right? So the thing that's protecting Moses is actually the word. So Yahweh's protecting Moses with the character of Yahweh, right? So we want to look at really what he's saying, the words that he's proclaiming as he goes by. He begins by saying Yahweh, Yahweh. Traditionally, what they do is they count Yahweh here twice. He says it twice, so they count it twice, and they cut off the end where it says visiting the iniquity. They don't count. They don't count that. They count. Let's see. Where this idea of the 13 attributes of mercy. Traditionally speaking, they'll say.
Because that's not mercy.
well, I found actually that it is. But in terms of the list, we'll just go through. I'm not going to put the whole list. We'll go through and see if we get through it all. But it begins with Yahweh. Begins with the name of Yahweh. When we think about Yahweh and who he is, and with all these things, we're thinking about mercy, how mercy relates to Yahweh. We think about the idea again of this mercy being this thing that originates from the merciful one, and not the one that's receiving the mercy, right? So when we think about Yahweh, being that Yahweh is the one who is all-knowing, knowing that we will sin, or knowing what we will do, right? He's able to still be merciful towards us beforehand, right? He's able to kind of,
he knows what you're going to do before you do.
Right, and he's not dealing with us, based on the thing that he knows we're going to do all the time, right? You could be
like he's not perpetually mad at us because
because he knows we're going to do something in the future. Right? He's not. Even though he's aware of, you know, what we may or may not do, he still is able to be merciful towards us. Again, we're thinking about mercy. It doesn't have anything to do with what somebody deserves in the first place. So we find this in Yahweh. We find this idea in Yahweh, who is, we look at his name, which he exists. He is the self-existent one. He is the one that is.
We don't even really need
eternal.
Us.
Right.
Why they even create people?
So there's no like we don't even deserve to have life. So the very fact that we even exist actually is mercy. The very reason that we are alive, that there is a such thing as human beings, is mercy in and of itself, because Yahweh is able to just be by itself, right? He self-exists. He can just be by itself, right? He can just be, right? But he chose, well, yeah, he just is. He be, right? Yahweh be. So he chose to create life. He chose to create mankind. And again, that in and of itself is an act of mercy. When we think about the fact that, sin coming into the world, Yahweh, when he banished Adam and Hava from the garden, that was an act of mercy, because he could have just, he could have just been dead, right? He could have just said, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Forget the idea of humans. We won't do this. But the Most High took steps to prevent this eternal state of wickedness. He made a way out. He made an escape from the problem that was created because of sin. And actually, putting Adam and Hava out of the garden, again, was indeed an act of mercy, right?
Because they was unclean, they had defiled themselves.
They had defiled themselves, but he was also keeping them. He was keeping them from the tree of life. Also,
that reminds me of beatitude.
What?
A beatitude.
Which?
Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy.
Very good. Okay, so again, when we look at Yahweh, we see mercy. Good. Okay. Okay. We look at Yahweh's name. We have the arm and the hand. We have the man with his arms raised, which gives you the idea of breath. So we have the work, or that which that which initiates work, which is the arm and the hand. Breath. We have the tent peg, which is again to add to and to secure, and again breath. Right? Right. So when we think about Yahweh, who is life, Yahweh is life, and he brings life. Yahweh is life, and he adds to life. Right? Yahweh is life, and he provides that which is necessary to have life. And we can see that, in, you know, these pictures. But we also see mercy because of the idea of adding life, right? If he is life, he is that breath, right? He is the originator of life. Once he decides to add life, that's mercy, right? Because we don't deserve that, right? We don't deserve life. It's not as if you know, this is something that we deserve, like something that's owed to us. It's out of his own strength. It's out of his own strength. We think about the yod. It's that strength from above. It's that strength from above.
Covered Moses.
Right. So that strength that's from above, which is life, adds to life. So again, when we look at this, we're able to see and think about mercy just by thinking about Yahweh's name, just by thinking about who he is. Understanding that even just inside of his name, we can see mercy. We can see, attributes that are connected to Yahweh. Okay, so looking back at Exodus 34, we have a Yahweh 2 times. Yahweh, and again, just from a Hebraic standpoint, when we think about this idea of repetition, it just adds to it, strengthens it. It kind of gives you that concept of intensifying a thought when we're saying it twice. So here we're talking about the name above all names. We're talking about Yahweh. This is what is proclaimed, Yahweh. And the next thing we have attribute is El. The next thing we have is El. The name El, the title El, the name, it denotes power.
Wait, does Yahweh count twice or just once?
I'm only counting it once.
Okay.
Traditionally, they do count it. Like I said, they count it 2 times. But
So it's the first and the second.
For our purposes, it's only 1.
Okay, but in normal, it's the first and the second.
That's correct. Okay, so happened with the color here. I think when you turned that yellow lamp on, it made it yellowish. Okay, L, again, is his name. It denotes power, strength, ruler. We see that the idea of power, the strength, ruler. And we can see that even just in the name, right? With the Aleph and the Lamed, power and strength and ruler. We can see that here with the ox's head and the shepherd's goat, right? This idea of power, strength, and ruler. We know that the Most High, being ruler over everything. And again, it's the same kind of a concept when looking at the fact that he is all powerful and ruler over all. And, you know, all strength lies with him. So, again, when Yah even chooses even to just deal with his creation, you know, his mercy. His mercy. We don't. It's merciful just for Yahweh even to just even deal with us. And again, knowing that, you know, that we're in the way that we are in, right? We know when we look at what it is that Yahweh has even done for us, even from the very beginning, when Yahweh's even still in the sentencing phase of dealing with sin back in Genesis, you know, he lets it be known that there will come a redeemer, that there will be a one that will actually free us from this curse that's been put upon us. And again, that's mercy. Right, knowing that we are in these sinful bodies, you know, which crave, which crave just to be satisfied. He knows that we're in these bodies that crave satisfaction, but yet and still, even though he has the power and the strength to do away with all mankind
and evenness
and wickedness. Just it don't have to be this long process that he's letting it be, but it is this long process for mercy's sake.
I'm gonna say that he won't forever strive with man, and therefore he numbered his days.
Yeah, but he numbered it to
a lot.
Yeah. So, you know,
I mean, it's a lot in our time at least. It might not be a lot in the scope of eternity.
I guess not if we're looking at people that lived for hundreds of years and then they just made it 120 years. But even still, just every move that Yahweh makes towards his people is an act of mercy. So, you know, putting that on top in terms of Yahweh, the name Yahweh, his position in terms of being El, being all powerful, being the ruler of all. Those two kind of concepts kind of go together in terms of the fact that he is so high, and yet he still deals with us that are so loved. Okay, so the next one. That's two. The next one is Hiskey's word, which is compassion. Compassion, which is Rehum. 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 The root being Raham. Compassion. The word Raham, which is the root of Rehum, means, it's an interesting word, to fondle, to love, compassionate, mercy, merciful, pity, to have compassion. When we look at this in the ancient, which is the waters, which is my race skills. That still is kind of funny. Race. When we look at again this word compassion, the word Raham, we look at this het, which is a fence, which is something that makes a division between in and out. We think about the thing that separates the in and the out. So we have the man, and then we have the separation between the in and the out, and we have the blood or the water, right? So the thing that kind of holds the water inside of man is the bowels, or the depths of the man, right? So the insides, right? So again, we think about compassion. Again, it's internal. It's not reactive. It's something that comes from the inside. So we can see that with this idea of the thing that holds in the blood or the water in the depths of man, you know, the bowels of man is compassion, right? Because again, it's that thing that's internal. So when we think about Yahweh, again, thinking about mercy, it's not this thing that he's doing, you know, because we earned something, right? It's not something that you can earn, right? You can't be good enough, right? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't have anything to do with you being good. It has to do with Yahweh and his mercy, right? That's what mercy is, right? So we're able to see this when we look at these different components, these different things that are giving us different ways to look at one thing. We look at all of these things, we're able to see mercy in all of them, really, because again, we're looking at different attributes of mercy or different attributes of Yahweh, right? Different ways of looking at who Yahweh is and his character and how he deals with us, right? So again, we look at this, one of the things that is shouted out is this.
Shout it out.
Is compassion. Compassion. Next, we have gracious. What? Hold on. What does King James say after compassion?
Passionate. Mine says compassionate and gracious in the American Standard.
Compassionate and gracious. Yes, that's what we are. Gracious. Or they
Was it
Hanun.
what Exodus?
Hanun.
34, verse 6.
So next is gracious. Gracious. I don't know if I'm getting through all of these. We can go on next. Gracious. The word there is Hanun. Hanun. Hanan is the root. Again, Hanun, so the root is this. Dealing with the three-letter root is this. The het, the nun, and the final nun is giving us the word for gracious there. It means to bend. Hanun. Hanun. And the root is Hanan. It means to bend or to stoop. Hanan means to bend or to stoop in kindness. Stoop in kindness. You know how you get when you see a little kid down and you go down and stoop. Oh, look at the little so-and-so. To implore. Implore. Merciful. Show mercy, pity, favor. All of these things are pity, favor. All these things are included in this word, Hanan. What we have there? Hanan. So when we look at this word in the ancient, this word in the ancient gives you the picture of the wall that continues. The wall that continues. A wall brings protection. A wall brings protection. So you have the idea of protection that continues. When you think about a wall, you can think about a camp or the family, a collection of tents that are placed in a circular configuration that continues. Think about the idea of family, or within the walls, within the family walls. You can see that concept of family with the sprouting seed, right? The continuation of the family, right? So when you think about how what lies inside of family, again, now we're looking back at this idea of graciousness, of mercy, of favor, of pity. All of these kind of concepts that kind of all kind of meld together into this main idea of mercy. But within this, inside of this, the ancient pictures of this word Hanan or Hanun, which is translated as gracious, we see these concepts of how Yahweh is dealing with us, right? He bends down and stoops down in kindness towards his people, right? He who is on high, he's the Most High, he's on high, and he comes down and deals with us and gives us that continual, he provides that continual protection for us, right? That he continues our family, right? He makes that wall of continuance for us, right? So we see that there with this idea of graciousness. He shows mercy on those even who don't deserve it, right? That's what mercy is. Consoling the afflicted and raising up the oppressed. That's what we see inside of graciousness. So again, we're looking at the character of Yahweh. We're looking at the character of these 13 attributes of mercy. Again, we see Yahweh, we see El, we see the giver of life. We see the giver of life, the one who is power, who is strength, who is Elul. And yet still, he brings compassion. He brings graciousness. And he brings next, he has slow to anger. Let's say here, showing compassion, showing favor. Hold on. Gracious is favor. Patient. Oh, I see. This version has patient, but some say slow to anger.
That's what mine says. Slow to anger.
Right, it should be that because there's two words there. There's two words there where it says slow to anger. There's one word that literally means long or long suffering or patient or slow. That word is arek. Arek. And then there's another word that is off, which is anger, right? So it's which is the flared nostrils. I can't really flare my nostrils that much. They're pre-flared, I think. But that's the word for anger. But he's slow to anger. So it's giving you that word for anger, which gives you the idea of rapid breathing and passion and anger and that flaring of the nostrils, but Yahweh's slow to anger, right? He's long suffering. It takes him a long time to become angry. This is an attribute of Yahweh. Right? When we think about these different attributes, when we look over in the book of Galatians, when it's giving you the fruits of the Spirit, right? We got the same things over there in Galatians chapter 5 when it's giving you these fruits of the Spirit. We got peace and kindness and goodness, self-control, patience, long suffering. Because this is the character of Yahweh. Somebody was talking to me. I was talking to somebody, and they was talking about anger. And anger, when you have like an anger problem,
Anger issue.
That's like the opposite. It's really the opposite of what we would say is the character of Yahweh, right? It doesn't really coincide with what we see in terms of attributes of Yahweh. Here again, back in Exodus chapter 34, when he's dealing with this idea that Yahweh is slow to anger, right? He gives us time. He gives us a time and a space to repent. That's something that we enjoy with this new covenant. When we're dealing in the old covenant, not that Yahweh wasn't slow to anger in the old covenant, but we have a full, a better expression of his character trait of long suffering and being slow to anger in the new covenant, because in the event that we do go astray, transgress Yahweh's will in any way, in the new covenant we don't have that instant old covenant, we had certain sins that were unto death. When in the new covenant, we're able to actually have a chance to actually turn, and that's really what we want to be able to do. I don't think I'm gonna go anymore. I think I'm gonna stop right here. We'll talk about this some more as we go on throughout the weeks. But I want to say that when we think about Yahweh and his graciousness, we think about Yahweh and his compassion. We think about the fact that he is all powerful. We think about the fact that he has put his character inside of us. We think about the things that we, Paul talks about us having liberties, right? But everything not being expedient, right? He talks about the fact of us having power and strength to do this or to do that, right? But everything is not something that is expedient for us to do. We can talk about things like, justice and equity, right? And what somebody deserves. You know, you may deal with people who may deserve a smack, right? But Yahweh being compassionate, being long suffering, being somebody who he's powerful enough where he can smack you, right? But he don't all the time.
All the time.
Right? So when we think about something for us just to think about, something for us just to kind of think about, you know, as we go into, as we continue to go into this time, you know, even on this Shabbat, think about our personal kind of use of compassion and graciousness, and our personal use of the strength and power that Yahweh has placed on us, and how we use it. Are we using it the way that Yahweh would have for us to be doing it? Is there ways that we can do it better? And if so, you know, we should be seeking Yahweh's face and seeing how that is, right? Because again, we think about Yahweh and his character being light, right? Shining in the darkness. That darkness, you know, is inside of us. That darkness is inside of us, right? And when that character of Yahweh, when that spirit of Yahweh gets brighter, right, it blocks out then the darkness, or it exposes the darkness. It exposes those areas and things that are not of Yahweh, and allows us to see those things so that we can get them out, right? So when we think about, you know, this time that we are in, you know, moving forward, you know, we should be in the mind of preparation for what's to come. In this case, we're talking about trumpets. We're talking about Yom Kippur. We're talking about Sukkot, right? You know, people making their Sukkot plans, right? But we can't pass over these things that come before it, right? And you know, this is that time. This is that time that we really should be kind of pressing in and looking at ourselves, you know, introspective. You got a lot of time to do it, and you know, with all of that time, right, there should be great gains because of the fact that there is so much time, right? So I want to go too much more right now. I'll pick up on some more of these things. The rest of the 13 probably, as time goes on. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there. If anybody have any thoughts or comments or anything, questions? Okay, so if not, for now, I think we're going to go ahead and be done for now. Say Shabbat Shalom.